And we are live. Hello, Jenny.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm stoked to have you on the call and excited for what we're going to discuss today.
Yeah, me
Um,
too. Thanks for having me.
a pleasure. You and I met at Camp Mulgrave, and I've been following what you've been doing for a while. And the first question I ask all my guests is a simple one that it seems simple, but it's not that simple. And is, who is Jennie Davis? And that question, please don't define yourself through work, because everybody tends to go, oh, I work, I do this in the industry. Well, no, that's not a question. This like is simple, but goes deeper. Who's the persona? Who's the person behind the persona?
Let's see. Let me see if I can categorize myself without sounding like a lunatic. I am a super driven person. I am a mom, and I'm a mom of a mom of a little girl. And I work in this industry, in this creative industry. And I really don't want to sound like a lunatic, so I'm going to actually just stop there. Because that's kind of who I am. I'm a creative, I'm a mom, I'm a business owner, and I am somebody that doesn't like to, take no for an answer.
Okay. Like I was interested in having you on the call for many reasons, but one of the reasons was, first of all, is that you're a woman, and I do feel that in the podcast I didn't have enough female representation, which I've been trying to have, but it's not easy to have. And also because I knew that you would bring something different to the table from the other conversations I've had in the past. And one thing I just like note from the get-go, from the answer you gave me, is that you made a big emphasis on the fact that you're a mother. And, I have other guests that are also fathers, and they've defined themselves in many ways. And maybe some of them have said, like, yeah, I have kids at some point, but like none of them put that much emphasis on that specific thing. And that's one of the reasons also why I want to have more women in the podcast. It's because this is something that, like, to me, branches apart from what I had before. And so let me ask the following questions based on that. Is like, why is that part of you such a cornerstone of your persona?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not going to answer for everybody, but from my experience, the day I decided to be a mom, not the day I became a mom, the day I decided to be a mom, something in me, switched, and not in a good way, not in a bad way. It just switched. And my idea of success in this industry shifted completely. And again, this is not from the time that I became a mother. It's from the day that I decided I wanted to be a mother. And being a mom is part of my identity, because my kid is so much part of who I am and how I structure my day. And how I structure my life, and that new form of success involves her, and showing up for her. So it is part of who I am. And I think that, something that I talk about often is how, there's this hustle culture in our industry. And when you're young and, unencumbered by life, not necessarily children, just life in general, you can really own that hustle culture, and you can work 12 hours and 14 hours and, sleep at the office and go to work, take the bus to work for 2 hours a day. Like, that's something that you have the ability to do. But the more you grow, the more you realize that that's not sustainable, not a good way to live like a work-life balance. And, really like not just, it's not good. And I think having things outside of the creative industry, whether that's like a hobby, an aging parent, a child, a spouse, a best friend, like whatever, a plant, like, having things outside of your job. Which is why I think a lot of people, when you ask them who they are, and even me, like I really struggle to define myself without my role, is because we put so much into this industry because we all started because we were passionate for it, right? And like this was our hobby. We enjoyed doing it. Either we loved to draw or we loved to model, or like we were all these creative beings, and then took that and made it what once defined us as, teenagers or whatever, as like the creative one, is now how we define ourselves as adults, and it's became our job. And it's hard to you have to find a way to separate yourself from like what you do in the day to day, and like what you do outside of those working hours. It's and like for me, that is my kid. Like the rest of my day when I'm not here evolves around making sure that she's like taken care of, and having a good time, aspiring, and like reaching her dreams, and being a part of that as well. So I don't know, does that answer your question? I'm going to ask that a lot. I don't know.
No, it does. I'm a father, and so something I always say when these kind of conversations like arise is that when you have a kid,
sorry, 1 second, I'm just opening the window.
It's fine. So when you have a kid, it stops being about yourself or only yourself, and then it becomes something else. And I mean, and that's a very powerful energy, I think, for the good, because even if like having a kid is hard, like the effort, like the energy consumption, the lack of sleep, and like you said, like how you have to reshuffle everything around them. Like you said, like something shifted inside of you, and so you start prioritizing and seeing life differently. Which to me is a good thing, because we live in a society where everything is funneled. It's like it's going through a funnel that ends up in this kind of meat grinder that is work. Work, money, profit, consumption, whatever it is. And so we're still part of that system. It's just that instead of like thinking about that system as a mean to get shiny things, it's a mean to like take care of this little being that is now our responsibility.
I mean, yes and no. I mean, like, I agree with you. I just think that, when I was younger, my notion or my idea of what a successful creative was very different than what I think a successful creative is now. And my idea of what a successful adult is, because, let's be honest, we are now adults. When I was younger, what I thought was like form success as an adult is very different. When my parents are like doctors and pharmacists and whatever. So they went to school, they got a job, and then they worked in that job. And then, maybe they changed one or two times, but in general, they had the same job from when they started until when they retired. And that's just not the case anymore. Like I've been a motion designer, I've been an illustrator, I've been a graphic designer. I've done like newspaper layouts. I'm doing producing now and operations. It's like you're reinventing yourself all the time. And it's because there's certain things that don't align with where I see myself in the future. So, I just think, and I think that the trigger for all of that was deciding to be a parent and asking myself, what do I want to be when I grow up? And so I mean, I credit my kid for I think a lot of the success that I've had over the years was because I had a kid and because I had to ask myself those really tough questions of what I'm doing right now, what I actually want to be doing. And is it
I'm
sustainable?
I'm smiling inside because for each guest I choose a topic that I haven't announced to you yet. And it's funny how in every call the guests end up talking themselves about the topic without even me talking about it.
What was our topic?
So my topic for today was change. And so you've been bringing that into the conversation yourself, like right now, which is awesome. And and well, change happens for many reasons. Like, having a kid, like we live in a society that is not, like you said, like doesn't play by the same rules anymore, where you could have a career in a company. Now that's out of the window. Even if like in as an employee, people don't work anymore their whole life for a company. Like they work 3-4 years for one, then they move to another one, sometimes even shorter. And so before like going deeper into that notion of change, is like when we say the word change, what that word evokes to you.
I don't know necessarily that I would define it as change. I would just define it as like a shift in my mentality, because I think where I was in my 20s, you know, you just see the world differently than you do when you're 30 or 40 or 50 or whatever. And, um, you know, I talk with a lot of creatives and are, around my age, and we're all hitting that like midlife crisis era. Which, joking or not joking, that's when like this huge shift in your mentality also happens, because you're like, okay, so like I've been doing this for 10, 15 years, and I need to be doing this for another 10 or 15 years or 20 years or 25 years or whatever your retirement savings looks like. And you got to be like, is this what I'm doing? Like, is this what I'm planning on? Can I make money as a motion designer when I'm 65? Like, I don't know. Are there motion designers that are 65? Like, is that what they're doing? Like, it's like a new industry. And we don't really have those answers yet. So I just think that being part of like the middle generation of this industry, because I think there are quite a few people that are older than me, and there's a lot of people that are younger than me, but I would say like there's a good bulk of people that are around, I'm assuming you're around my age as well. We're kind of asking these questions, is like, is this what we're doing? I mean, you started a podcast because like there was obviously something that you were seeking that you weren't necessarily getting in your day-to-day job, whether that's like human interaction, because like as a freelancer, we don't always get to have, those big conversations and the water cooler stuff. So does this answer that question for you? Or are you looking for something bigger? Or is it a change in what you want to be doing? And I think we're all kind of asking ourselves those questions and coming up with, pivots or a new definition of what we plan on doing moving forward, which I think is natural.
Well, it's to me, change is what it's also motion. Like it's funny because it's a wordplay with motion design and all this stuff, but it's like being in motion. That's what I think. And it's like it's exactly what you said. It's like the mindset you had when you were young or younger evolves. evolves, and then your needs, your dreams, your aspirations, like, also change. And I think it's important for younger people to hear, like, to get to understand this, because what happens, like, very often is, like, people start changing, and then some of them, because that's like what is transmitted through social media a lot, is like, it's kind of like you're betraying yourself, or you're betraying your
Oh yeah.
ideas. And in fact, like, something that stuck with me, it was like in South America, it was a political meeting, and then there was this guy that used to be a revolutionary, um, who used to follow the dictatorship, and he was like giving a speech, and then somebody from the crowd says, like, yeah, like, you betrayed your ideas because now you're saying this, and said this before. And the guy said, like, I remember very well when I said that thing. It was in this year, this date, for this political meeting. And at that time, when I said that, I truly believed it. But now the world has changed, and I have changed. And now I see things differently. And I'm not convinced anymore that that thing that I used to think is the best answer for the problem we're having. And to me, this is like, it's sort of similar for us. It's like, when I started, I wanted to work at Pixar. And then I never got to work at Pixar, but I worked on similar companies. And I really quickly realized, like, I really hate this place. It's like, I don't want to work here, because, like, I feel very bad. And so that's where, again, like, motion and transformation, I was like, okay, if I don't like this, then what do I like? And then yeah, you start exploring. The reason I also chose this topic for you, it's because there's another truck.
It's a garbage truck. Sorry. Hang on. It will
No,
leave in 2 seconds.
no, it's okay. It's okay. Probably after cleaning the audio, nobody will hear it.
Yeah.
Is because, if I'm not mistaken, you are in the middle, or you have recently kind of like pivoted in your career, or like you've been changing your orientation. And yeah, if you can share a little bit about, like, what the pivot was,
Yeah.
and also why.
Yeah. So I'm going to, yeah, let me answer that question by going a little bit backwards. So, like,
Sure.
I started my career as a motion designer. And I went to school for visual communications. And I started at a small company doing, like, explainer videos and all that kind of stuff. And then I freelanced for like 2 days and got a job as a full-time employee at a broadcast company here in Canada, and worked there for a while on, like, branding and really, sorry. Yes,
That's
thank you
okay.
for protecting us from the garbage men. Um, um, Working on branding and, like, large scale kind of network stuff, which is great. And I had a lot of fun. And then my kid was born, and I realized that if I wanted to be financially stable in my future, this wasn't the place that I needed to be in. So again, I went freelance. I had messaged a bunch of contacts saying that I was going full-time freelance, and sorry, he's moving right now. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Uh, went full-time freelance and was pretty much booked up for the next, 2 or 3 years. But then again, I kind of started asking myself these questions again. And it's like, is this what I want to be doing? Do I want to be answering the call from a client to do this specific brief without having any, like, creative input, and just kind of doing what I was being told to do? And honestly, the answer was no. I didn't like that. I didn't like having an opinion. And I felt like my job was keeping up with technology. And I hated that. And I honestly didn't have the patience for it anymore either. So I shifted and I started my company, which is Direct Studio. And I started being more on the back end of a project. And without realizing it, I sort of became like a project manager, a producer, as well as sort of like a creative director. So I started calling myself creative producer because that's what I was. I was not as much involved in doing the projects themselves, but I was like overseeing them and giving the creative direction on them, and making sure they were kind of running as smoothly as I could. Um, so then I started kind of defining myself as a studio, but then again, ran into the same question: is this what I want to be doing? And again, found myself not being able to come to the table with the right ideas, and not the right ideas, but enough of my opinion wasn't being taken into consideration. Um, and you're working with marketing teams and big clients and whatever, and there's certain expectations, and I started asking myself again, is this what I want to be doing? Is this what I'm actually doing right now? I don't know. Um, and um, I the last I would say since the day I started my company, I have been in this what am I doing um phase. Um I run I'm part of a mastermind with some friends out here in the Toronto Motion Meetup, and we started our companies basically all together. Um and I mean they can attest to this. Like since the day I started, I'm like, what am I doing? is this is this who I am? Um and um and the last few months, um since like January is like normally like a bit of a lull. So I kind of said, you know what? I'm going to take this time and actually start asking myself these super hard questions, and try to figure out, um, if where I came from is where I'm going. Um, and yeah, so I sort of kind of started to understand that I love the behind the scenes. I love the operations. I love making like business hubs and project sheets and Excel sheets. And I love talking with the freelancers and getting them on board. But I didn't really want to be part of the creative itself anymore. I felt like, um, admitting that, because that's where I was smiling before, like admitting that I was not that person anymore, which is so ingrained in who I am. Um, and because my hobby became my job, it's just so much a part of who I am. Saying I'm not that person anymore um required some therapy. So I was working with a wonderful career coach. Her name is Michelle, sorry if I'm getting this wrong, but Michelle Carlin, who I met through the Lady Boss Slack, which Shauna runs. And she was giving like this talk about, you know, I think it was like about imposter syndrome or something like that. And I'm just like, I need to work with her. And yeah, you just sort of started making these lists of all these things that I could be doing or should be doing, and I did that at Camp MoGraph last year. I did a talk about like utilizing LinkedIn for sales and stuff like that. I'm like, maybe I go into consulting for LinkedIn, and we started exploring that idea. And I immediately I'm like, nope, I hate this. I don't want anything to do with this. And it was just a lot of that back and forth until I kind of landed where I am now. And I'm like, no, this is what I love. This is what I love doing. It's what I'm doing already. I'm just reframing the way that I present myself as I'm not the creative anymore, but I am part of the creative industry. I mean, every now and then I do still do creative jobs, and I still have a lot of clients that come to me for, motion or design or whatever. And I don't necessarily turn them away depending on the project. But now I'm in a position where I can say no if I don't want to, or if it's not the right company or it's not the right budget. I feel much more capable of saying like, sorry, like, but here's a bunch of other people that would be great for this. So yeah, I think that's kind of been my journey. And right now, Uh, I'm doing like creative operations and calling it fractional producing because I'm coming in for like short-term projects. Um, and I had an opportunity to work with some lovely people the last few months in this role, and it's been amazing. And for now, it is ticking all the boxes of like where I want to be, where I want to go, um, how I see myself, you know, growing as a creative, non-creative. But it's definitely a journey for sure.
When everything you shared is really interesting because, first of all, like you said, is you don't want to be part of a creative anymore, and that's fine. Like that's okay. And when I interviewed Erin Sorofsky, well, she used to be implicated in all the creative, but now at Sorofsky, she's mostly doing business. She's not. I mean, yeah, she keeps an eye on stuff, but she's not anymore doing the creative, and she's super happy with that. Like in the beginning, she was like, "Ooh, business stuff," and now she's like, business stuff." Um, so that thing, and I also like it brings me the memories of like a guy I used to know, and he loved eating pizza. And when he started working at a pizza place, he started hating pizza because he was like eating it all the time, smelling it all the time, and at some point he was like, I can't take it anymore. And so I think um in a society nowadays where we are again like pushed to do the work, promote the work, talk about the work, leave the work. At some point, you're like, enough with the work. It's like, I need to do something else. And maybe that process will kind of like later on bring you back to it. Maybe you will in a couple of years go like, you know what? Like now I'm missing it.
Yep.
And I want to get back more into it.
Yeah, that's like when when we were, I can't remember which talk it was, but at at Dash Bash this year, one of the presenters was talking about pivoting backward, and I really aligned with that um because the fact that I'm pulling away right now doesn't mean that I'm not that I can't come back. And I am allowed to explore other avenues and to see kind of where I am now as a person. Um, but that doesn't mean that I can't come back to what I was doing. And that doesn't mean that, perhaps I come back to it and I just don't earn money from it. And I actually do it as a hobby as it once was. Like maybe the passion that I had for it is gone because I have to make money and it's like tied to it. So like my skill level or whatever is tied to my income, and that kind of ruins it, to be honest. But I love the pivot backwards because this is the direction that I'm going in right now. But who knows? In 5 years' time, maybe I'll be back to illustrating. I don't know where I started. Like I don't know. I think that's why I will always be a creative person because I'm forever finding new ways. Kind of like I'm always trying to align with myself. I'm always trying to align with the world and just kind of where I see myself, and different from our parents' generation where they just did the same job all the time. I have all these transferable skills that, by the way, some of them I acquired by becoming a mother. Um, and, and I can, learn to utilize these things in different ways. And I can leave space for myself to be creative. That's not, defined by my income, which is a nice place to be in.
Yeah. And you're like, technically, again, I think social media has been a very bad thing regarding this because we are surrounded by gurus telling you constantly what you should do and how you should do it. When in fact, you can do whatever you want. Like, I joke with every guest, like, this podcast is the less interesting one for the algorithm. Like, um, but I don't care. It's like that's not the point. Like, I'm not trying to become the next Mr. Beast of motion design. Like, that's not the intention here. Um, and so that like that mentality of saying, like, of breaking free, sort of,
Yeah.
like, of what people are saying, or, well, what people may think. Like, you decide, like, let's say you decide to stop, like, creative, and you go full on into what you're doing now, and nobody is in your shoes. Like, nobody's living what you are living, where you are living with a family. Like, it's every person is like a whole universe. Um, and so nobody can really comprehend why you're making these choices. And so through the years, like, that's something I've learned, is like, not be too quick to judge, or even to give an opinion on what somebody's doing, or the path they're taking, because I probably know only the tip of the iceberg of the motivations that led that person to take those choices, or to have that intention. And I think it's like, again, like you said, we live in an industry where there still are not people that are half retired from this industry. Um, I think I'm a bit older than you, so but I'm still far from retiring. So I've been asking myself also the same questions, and I've already also been making choices of stuff that I don't want to do anymore, because I don't find any joy, any pleasure into doing it. It's like it becomes even like a drag. So I'm like, okay, like, these type of things, like, I don't want to do that anymore. Like, just, and that's like, if you have the financial freedom to do it, then it's great. Because I think you mentioned something that, like, very briefly, and I think we touched base that with Joel Pilger, is that sadly, in our society, freedom often comes with, like, being wealthy enough to be able to make the choices you want to make. Like, what, I'm not going to take on that project because I need a mental break for 2 weeks. The thing is, like, not a lot of people have that freedom, and we have to be mindful of that. And also, like, I think now, I'm talking as an industry as a whole, we should be building towards, like, that freedom for everybody as much as possible. Because, again, otherwise you end up funneled in that meat grinder where you can say no to anything because you're living paycheck to
Yeah.
paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah. I mean, listen, like, a lot of this stuff that I'm talking about and all these changes that I'm affording myself are, they come from a place of, privilege and hard work, and, like, being financially stable enough to be like, no, I am going to take the next 3 months to just, think. Not everybody can do that. And I'm very much aware of that.
I wasn't judging that at all.
No, no, no. I didn't assume so. I'm just, I'm continuing your thought. Like, and when I was younger, I couldn't do that, and I was living paycheck to paycheck. And I never really had the time to. I don't think I ever had the time as I do now to actually think about where I'm going. And I think a lot of the decisions that I made throughout my career were based on either finances or stability, or I don't know, like, just, they weren't fully thought through. Like, I took a job because I knew I was going to get a good mat leave. And in Canada, got like a year mat leave. And I knew that my company would top me up to my salary. So I'm like, okay, great. So at least I have a year that I'm, like, being paid. So I took the job. Was it the best fit? I don't know. Like, probably not. But in the moment, it suited me. And and all the while, like all of those decisions that I took, every freelance project that I took, it was based on, do I need more money? Is this like, it's all the questions that I wasn't allowing myself to ask myself if this is what if this is what brings me joy. I'm always joking that the last few months, few years, I've been married condoing my career. And everything that doesn't bring me joy, I'm just not doing anymore. And again, it comes from a place of privilege, but it also comes from a place of having the time and the freedom to now ask myself, is this right? Is this actually bringing me joy? Is this bringing me closer to my end goal? And, a lot of the stuff does revolve around, you know, being financially stable. And I'm not talking about being millionaires. I'm just talking about, being able to go to the
No,
groceries
no.
and buy cherries, it's like, um, it's, yeah. So I just, when you're younger and you're kind of living the dream, you don't really stop to wonder. You don't stop to ask yourself. But if you can get to a point in your career where you can actually say like, oh, actually, I don't like doing this X, Y, and Z. Maybe I won't. It's it's a very hard thing to say no. Like, and we're trained to say yes all the time. We're trained to be those yes people. We're trained to be the button pushers and like leaders of technology and creativity and all those kinds of things. But in the end of the day, like, is it benefiting us, or like, are we just being sucked into this wheel? And like, are we feeding the algorithm instead of ourselves?
Well, it's like I would like I think it's part of the reasons I do the podcast is like if this helps, for example, in this case, younger people to ask themselves this question earlier in their careers, I think they will not only like be much more happy later on, but also I think they will end up in the places they want to be sooner. Because I do think that when you're doing the things that you want to do, and that means that you're channeling the best energy you have in doing the things you love, and generally people noticed that. That's when you get noticed. That's when you go like, okay, this person like he's really vibing with this thing, and that becomes kind of like your signature in a way, even if your signature evolves. And we've talked about this with Ariel Costa, like Blink My Brain, when he said like, yeah, you know what, like, am I the right person for Apple? Probably not. But like the people that come find me, they know why they come to find me and what they're gonna get. And I think like that part of like defining your identity is of course hard when you're younger because you're still like going through a lot of like self-questioning and evolution and change and stuff. But like if you can very early ask yourself like, okay, what do I really want to do? Like what's my thing now? And then just like put like the effort into that, like with heart. Um yeah. I think that will save those young people like a lot of heartbreaks and
I
suffering.
think you touched on it before, like, that you can kind of do it your way. And I think like podcasts like this and, there's uh, like these podcasts and the new events coming up. I think like, you know, um, going to like Camp MoGraph and hearing the fireside chats or Dash Crash and hearing all of their like presenters and stuff like that. It's important for people to hear that there's not one way. Like, you don't have to be successful right out the gate. You may be successful when you're 45. Like, you may be successful when you're 60. Like, I don't know. It's like, and there's no one way of doing things. There's no right way. But I think podcasts like this and hearing from different industry people or leaders or whatever is hearing their stories and how they're all so different. And they
Yeah.
all start from questioning who am I? Where do I want to be? And where am I going? And like, this is not going to be the same for me, and it's not going to be the same for you. We come from different people. We come from different places. We have different experiences. We have different skill sets. We have different interests and whatever. So my journey is going to be completely different from somebody else's journey. And it's not that one journey is better than the other. If you want to work at Pixar, I also wanted to work at Pixar. I never worked for Pixar. It doesn't mean that because I did or I didn't is better than anybody else. It's just, it's different. And, we all are different. We all are going to have a lived different experience, and our success in this industry is going to look very different from person to person, but it doesn't mean one person's less successful than the others. We just define our success differently. And that's what I think is really important about this. It's not about learning quicker or sooner or asking yourself questions earlier. It's about understanding that where you are right now is the right place for you to be. And if you're not happy of where you are, change. Think about it. Like, move in a different direction, take a different path, open a different door, see what happens. And like, every single person in this industry has asked themselves countless times and moved in different directions. And,
Yeah, I would like to add also that when you ask yourself those questions, you have to step away from the noise.
Yeah. You have to
Because
turn off social media for sure.
because
Yeah.
like you otherwise you're not going to get the mental space to avoid being influenced by whatever, because it's like human. It's like you will start like reading and researching and what people are saying and whatever. And in the end, like, again, it doesn't matter what people say, because I'm tired of 20 years old, like, saying they are in a 6-figure self-job company, everything is automated, and they just leaving. I mean, first of all, it's false. And secondly, I mean, do you really want to like crash people to be successful? Like, is that your model? Like, I don't know. It's like, just step away from the noise, and it's almost like a retreat where it's only you, and you yourself and I, and yeah, you just have to suck through those like hard questions. And there's like a method that I've been trying through the years, and I really think is like really works. And it's like, I cannot recall where I heard it for the first time, but it's like you have to sit in complete silence. Like, what the guy was saying is like, none of us hardly get silence since we are born. Like, we are in the womb of our mother, we're already hearing sounds, the sounds of the breathing of the mother, like, when she talks. And then when we get out, like, everything is noise, like, all the time. And so it's like, you have to sit in complete silence. And generally the process takes between 30 minutes and an hour, but generally around like 25 minutes, your mind goes blank at some point. And then that's when the flood of ideas starts getting in, because you're giving your brain space to like kind of like clean up all the noise and the frequencies. And then that's where things starts to combine. You have a space that's open for that. That's one of the reasons why when I'm working creatively, like, I have to create a concept, I write a story, I never listen to music, for example.
Yeah, me too.
I generally put like noise cancellation earphones, so I'm kind of like cut out. I don't hear anybody talking, no truck, no dog, no nothing. And I find that those are the best moments where like I'm just like on a roll, and I can get stuff done like real fast. As soon as I start like having interferences, like music, a podcast, like whatever, it starts like slowing me down, and it becomes like more difficult even to learn stuff. Not everybody's like me, of course.
No, I'm the same. I can't work. I actually can't work with music on. The only time that I work with any type of music is if I'm um like if I'm writing, and then it's kind of like white noise music. Like it's not like anything with words in it or anything. I can't listen to it. It throws me off completely. Um yeah, I'm the same. It's my I'm always like in the middle of writing an email, and my husband will come down and he starts talking to me. I'm like, nope, nope, nope.
Yeah, I have the same with my daughter. She opens the door and I'm like, wait a second. And then like, and I tell her, and I'm like, okay, go. And then she was like, this, and that. And I was like, okay, this, and that. Okay, cool. And then the flow takes over again. I mean, it generally takes you, again, 25 to 30 minutes to be in the zone. And so as soon as somebody pulls you out, it will take you again 25 to 30 minutes to get again in the zone. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel that, and I feel like it's hard to manage my reaction when I'm being taken out of the zone. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, I feel like a lot of the time, like if I go for a walk or something, I won't take my earphones with, and I'll just like actually walk. And it's just silence. Or I'm watching the road or the park or whatever. I'm just kind of in my own thoughts, or I'll go swimming or whatever, and just the only thing that I'm really thinking about is trying to remember how many laps I did, which I'm terrible at counting. But it's those or the shower. Those are the times where I feel like my best ideas and the best like moments of change kind of come in, like the epiphanies. It's like, oh, maybe I should do this. And that's kind of where they come.
Those are also the moments where we are kid free.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. I mean, when they reach a certain age, that's the moment where you get under the water and go like, ah.
Yeah.
And it's like, can you hear this? Like, nothing.
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 Because like, I don't know about you, but like, I'm not like, like the idea of sitting for half an hour and like in complete silence makes me jittery. I don't think I'd be able to do it. I don't think I can, like, I can barely sit here for an hour without like, moving around.
I mean, you can move.
No, I know I can move, but like, I want to like get up and walk and like go get a coffee.
Yeah. But like as with everything, it's kind of like a gymnastic. It's like, even learning, like when you stop studying for a while and then you want to learn something new, it's really hard. It's like a muscle. You have to keep it like trained. I'm gonna like kind of like come back to something we discussed earlier. This is a hard pivot, but I think it's good to destabilize and just refocus. You mentioned, and I think now we're going to talk about more specific, like I would say, female stuff. But, you mentioned that like you were working for a company so you could have a good maternity leave when you had a kid. Did you socially got some pressure because of it?
What do you like? So like, what do you mean? What
do I mean is like here in Europe, for example, there's also maternity, like a very good maternity leave for women. I know we've been fighting so fathers could have a better one too. But the thing is, like, when that happens, like, so it's legally, it's the law. So it's your right. You have it and you should use it. But generally, in agencies, studios, production houses, you will get peer pressure because you're taking it.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of like, not from, I mean, maybe some colleagues, but mostly from the management, because like it's just a mathematical financial thing for them, and they will kind of like make you feel it, and that, like, here it's been like a very big topic of discussion
For sure.
for women in
Yeah.
in the creative industry that
Yeah,
are
no, I
like
understand what you're
employees.
saying. So, um, it's- there's different people. There were different people in my life at that time. And they all, reacted and didn't react in different ways. My art director was amazing. He had two twins. They were at the time probably like 2 or 3, and like he was super supportive and very, very sweet. I had a couple of, other art directors that were not like there was a woman that had just started working at the company. She was an art director. And then kind of the only woman that I knew that I could talk to, uh, in our department. There was a one day, something happened. I don't know. I couldn't feel the baby moving or something, and I reached out and ran over to her, and she basically sent me home. She had like no, I had like no. She was not like in charge of me in any way. She's just like, you need to go home. I'll deal with them. And like sleep on it. um, and obviously everything was fine, but uh, yeah, and like there were different people at the time. Um, some were incredibly supportive. Like my art director, he was just fantastic. He's just, he's a good guy. And he understood, and there wasn't, I didn't, at the time when I was pregnant, I didn't feel pressure. Feel, um, I didn't feel a shift. And, the days when I needed to, go see the doctor, like, or whatever, or go home in the middle of a panic attack, they were supportive and understanding. But I did feel I needed to come back earlier. I took 11 months instead of 12 months, or 10 months or something like that. And, I didn't feel seen and heard when I got back. There was an energy that had shifted when I got back. Not from my direct team, like, maybe slightly higher, but like my art director was wonderful and supportive, and he was holding my hand every step of the way and like happy to have me back, kind of thing. Um, but it wasn't perfect in the whole like scheme of things. And it is why I left. And um but maybe it's also part of like my idea of success and my idea of like who I was had also shifted, and maybe didn't fit into that scenario anymore. So you know I had, I used to come to work and I would stay till like 6 or 7 or 8 or whatever. And I was like, super motivated and loved doing it. And I came back and I'm like, no, actually, I'm going to come in a little bit earlier and I'm going to leave earlier because I need to go pick up my kid from daycare. Like, and I'm not going to put in the extra hours for no pay. Um, so, I mean, there was a shift in my mentality too, which, you know, I don't know that again, like I was cutting away from that hustle culture and accepting it for point face and being like, no, actually there's something beyond this. And, maybe like who I am had changed and I didn't fit anymore. And I don't know.
No, I understand what you say, but like from what I've seen through my career, is that that shift comes earlier for women because, of course, you carry the child, and that's something we will never be able to do. And so first of all, you need the time to recover. You need the time to be with the kid, and I also think that we fathers need it too, but we don't. That's not recognized yet, and I don't know how long it's going to take to be. Um, but what I do feel is that before the kid, you're giving more generally what happens is that you're giving more than what you're being paid for.
Yeah, but that's not okay.
No,
Like,
no, I 100%
yeah,
agree.
yeah.
But as soon as you have your child, then it's not that you don't want to give more. It's just that you don't have the time anymore.
I don't agree. Like, it's not that I stopped giving. It was just I had set
No,
up
no.
specific boundaries,
Let,
and like
let,
I
let,
would,
let me reframe. Let me
yeah,
reframe. I'm not saying you stopped giving.
yeah.
I'm just saying that suddenly you have a shift of priorities, but you're still delivering what you're being paid for. It's just that since you're not giving anymore that extra you were giving, because the same happened to me and to countless of other creatives without having a kid. When at some point, like, the relationship with the employer becomes, it's not that it becomes abusive, but like at some point you've been giving so much that you start drawing a line and you go like, you know what, like, I'm not gonna do this over time extra without being paid because I've done it too much, and I'm not even getting a thank you for this, and I'm not gonna stay late for this and for that, and so just like I said, you start putting some boundaries to these things, and then immediately, as me or other colleagues started doing that, then the mood became exactly what you described,
Right.
right? It became very less friendly
Yes.
and welcoming, and you were like, okay, am I doing something wrong, or
Yeah.
what's going on? And so I think that the fact that you, and of course I'm saying this from my point of view, but correct me, of course, is that shift in mindset comes earlier when you become a mother because you have to.
I, I honestly, I can't. I don't really. I don't know. I mean, there was definitely a shift in my mindset when I decided that I was going to be a mother for four. Um, During those like specific 9 months, I mean, my I was probably like preoccupied with other than like, learning a new tool or a new plugin or whatever. Like I was like messing or whatever, or like trying to breathe because, the baby's legs were in my lungs. Um, so, but so I think there was a definite shift in my mindset choosing to become a parent. And then when my kid was born, and obviously, I was lucky enough to have um, a mat leave and a lot of times, I think. Um, and then coming back is where that shifted again because I had the line becoming a parent with like the 4-day week, you know, where, in certain countries, they would have the 5-day week and they were working 40 hours a week. And now they've gone down to 4 days a week and they're working 35 hours a week or 32 hours a week or whatever. And they're as productive, if not more. And it's the same mindset that I feel like you have as a parent. Like I might have less time in the day than my single creative counterparts who you continue working throughout the night. But my mind is so like in focus zone because I know I only have this time, and at 5 o'clock or at 4 o'clock I have to leave. Like I cannot not leave. So I'm super honed in on what I'm doing. And I think that like that's a skill that I know, a lot of mothers can say that they have acquired. Like they will become very good at getting a lot done in a small amount of time. And I think that's like a huge mindset. Being being in that hustle culture and working 12 hours a day, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing better work. I mean, nobody can work for that long and still stay creative. It's impossible. It's impossible. You can't. It's like you cannot wake up in the morning, have a cup of coffee and then go for 12 hours and produce the same amount of creativity throughout the entire day. You can't. You need breaks. Your brain needs that quiet space. It needs a zone. You have to have a life outside of work to be creative inside of work. It's just it's how our brains function. Um and, learning to do more in less time or just focus time, can benefit all of us, not just parents. And, and I think that's kind of where, in this industry, we talk a lot about the work-life balance. I'm like, that doesn't exist. That's a pipe dream. But learning to balance everything outside of work with what you're doing inside of work within a certain amount of time frame, then that's the goal. Like, I have a friend that he runs a studio. He's got 3 kids. They're all they all have to be driven to school. So it's like a 30-minute drive there and a 30-minute drive back twice a day. I've got these things on my finger, sorry. Twice a day. And so he's only starting work at 10 o'clock and he's finishing work at like 2, because school systems think that parents work until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And so he has 4 hours a day that he can work, and his business is thriving. Like, because he's set boundaries, and when he's working, he's super focused and he's honed in on what he's doing. But that doesn't mean that his work is less quality. Like, his work is amazing. It's just, he has a limited amount of time to do it in. And so he sets him up for success in those times and finds the people to support him in that time. So, like, working 12 hours doesn't make you a better creative. In fact, it probably makes you a worse one. Like,
yeah, like, to me, this kind of like equates to, is that when people think that sometimes hiring a junior will cost less than hiring a senior. The thing is, like, they will hire a junior and doing a job is going to take 4 days. When you hire a senior, it will be done in 1 day or maybe 1.5. And so when you you do the multiplication with the rate, in the end, the senior is less expensive than the junior. And so I think, like, also it's focus, but it's also like purpose. It's when you are in that focus window, like you said, is you're being mindful of what you're doing. So you're not like just grunt working through things because you have to.
yeah.
And I mean, some gigs like do take a lot of time, but, like, to be honest, in most of the creative projects, like, creative happens in the beginning, and then it's just execution.
And yeah, absolutely.
And of course there will be bumps on the road, and you will have to find creative solutions for sure. But, like, the real thinking happens at the start, and how you plan things ahead, and how you decide technically how it's going to be like what techniques and whatever. But then it's just like either you or having people just processing through it and just getting things done.
Yeah.
And like, for example, to me, like, not only with the years passing by, but also, like, with parenthood, I feel like, for example, less and less excited about execution at all. It's like, do I really want to animate 150 layers with a gazillion of keyframes and start rigging the things? Like, no, I've done it too much. But, like, but what I really want to be involved in is like in the thinking. It's like sitting down and just thinking about, like, okay, how we're going to tell this story, and what's the character like trauma when he was a child, and all those things. Like you with your like you said Excel sheets, and I was like, Jesus, I had a shiver in my spine. I was like, oh.
Yeah, no, I love it. I'm like, again, like, that's exactly what I was talking about. Like, I kept on asking myself, like, what I wanted to be doing, and, pushing keyframes wasn't it anymore. And, like, if those 150 layers, we actually didn't need a camera. We met at Malca. We were working on a project together. That money one.
Yeah, we worked on Micah first, and then we met at camp.
Yeah.
We saw each other at camp.
Yeah, and then I remember that project had a ton of layers, and I was just like, ugh, this is just like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, um, and it was, I, I think those were like kind of the final projects. Those were like the last freelance motion design projects that I had taken and been like, this isn't it. This is not my answer. This is not my solution. And in the end of the day, the things that bring me joy were like fixing everybody's naming conventions because I'm like, this doesn't make sense.
Well, such as you stepped on other roles in that project. I did exactly the same. Like I was hired as an animator, and as soon as I started working on the project, I was like directly working with EJ, and I said like, dude, like you really have a problem of consistency here with like uh the stop motion effect your people are using, the colors, the textures, and this. And so I said like, if you want, like I can help you as a technical director, and I will just like establish all the guidelines to which like everybody needs to abide, so everything looks consistent. Because right now this is a circus, and like I remember that like at first like the art director that was like art directing this project like hated me because like I was saying like no, instead of saying like oh yes amen,
Yeah.
I was like say like I was saying like no because of this and this and this and that, and then she hated me first. But then afterwards, like EJ was like, yeah, now she wants you to supervise whatever. And
Everything. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and he was like, but he's sleeping now. He's in Europe. Well, wake him up. And I was like, well, I can't. And so I think like those situations also like help you kind of like because you have to problem solve stuff, kind of like discover other facets of your personality and stuff where you go like, I'm pretty good at this thing, like, um, but yeah,
I
I
think
really love doing.
like this whole conversation kind of touches on the same thing. It's about being like, um, purposeful in what you're doing. And like all of the change and all of the career choices kind of come down to being purposeful in your time and your effort, and understanding yourself. And I think that that aligns with a lot of creatives. Like I think we are relatively self-aware people, sometimes too much, and being mindful in in our our work. um I think that can lead to, um, great things or great paths to choose for ourselves.
Yeah, and I would say you're the only one to be able to find the answer to that. You
I
won't
don't know
find
that
that.
I found the answer.
No, no,
Oh,
no. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I
Oh,
mean,
yeah. I understand what you're saying. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
there's nobody on LinkedIn, nobody on a master class, and I know, to be honest, like I think good like coaches, they're not telling you what to do. They're just pushing you to ask yourself the right questions.
Yeah. And that's
Mostly.
why I liked working with Michelle. She didn't tell me what to do at all. Like it was just conversations that we were having, and we were kind of making, these lists together. And then in between times, I was just going through it and marking things off and or adding things or, trying different solutions until, the list became so small that I was like, okay, now I can think about this. Um, now I have the building blocks to what I'm actually wanting to do. And I know exactly what I don't want to do. And I think that was so important for me to the therapy around acknowledging that I am not defined by my creativity. Um, as a creative person is a very difficult thing to say, to go out and, so many creatives out there, they start businesses or whatever, and they're like, I don't want to run the business. I just want to do the creative direction. I'm like, no, that's not me. I don't want to do the creative and I want to run the business. And it was like, I was almost ashamed to say that I prefer an Excel sheet over an After Effects project. It was like, um, it, it, it's changing, it's changed the way that I am, like my whole 40 years of an identity, being this creative person, being an animator, being a motion designer.
Yeah, but
So yeah.
that's because we value a lot of. I mean, a lot of the time we value ourselves by how society perceives us, and I think like when you reach the point where you don't give a fuck anymore, that's liberating. Like, do I want like to put a yellow sock on my head? Well, I will, but what will the neighbor think? I don't give a fuck.
Well,
It's like,
wrong case.
and like when I was saying, like, I think it will be helpful for young people to ask themselves these questions like earlier. It's because also when you're young, you're free to fuck up like a lot of times. Like you do, because coming back to the fact of being parents is when you have a kid, you have a different pressure on why you should be sustainable financially, because you have to, you have to bring food to the table for this little being. But as long as you don't have a kid, like, please, like, go outside, like, explore, fuck up, mess up, test, try things. You will hate it, you will love it, doesn't matter. You have time. And you won't have this little thing next to you going like,
Yeah.
I'm hungry.
Yeah. With Stevie. Yeah. I mean, I never saw having a kid as a disadvantage or,
No, me neither.
yeah, I honestly, I think my career took off when I had her because I was so driven suddenly. Like I was always driven and I always loved, what I was doing, but there was some other fire that was lit when I decided I was having a kid. And, I don't think that would have happened for me personally, had I not had her. So I think she is the reason for my success. And, and, having a little girl in this world, comes with a certain amount of responsibility.
I have a girl too.
Yeah. And, teaching her and showing her and, being a person that she can, um, not copy, but like, take to learn from, and showing her that, people are going to say things all the time and they're going to put you down and they're not going to respect you because of your voice or because of your height or because of, who
Your,
you
ge- your,
are
gen-
or
your
whatever,
gender.
your gender or like whatever. But you define you and you are the only thing that will define your success and you define your success and that's all that matters. And everybody else around you can F off. And, um, and yeah, just like, showing her that despite everything, um, I think it became more important to me to be successful in her eyes as well. Like I want her to, you know, grow up and be like, oh, my mom's like this or whatever. And also, I think it's important for her to see the change. And I'm not defined by one thing. And if what I was doing isn't working for me, then I'm showing her, how I'm learning as a human to get better at what I'm doing and change. So, I think that's really important. There's just like a certain amount of obligation that I have to this little human to show her that the world is shitty, but she can thrive and succeed. And it doesn't matter where she comes from, who she is, and her gender. She just has to be a good human. And
Yeah,
that's my
I
new.
100% understand you because um I also have a girl, and and like, this might sound like corny, but as a man, as a father, I also feel kind of it's kind of like one of my core missions towards this kid is to convey what a good, like to give like a good masculine image of what a man or a father should be. Because then when she will meet other men later on the road, she has a standard, which is the good one, and she doesn't, because I mean, let's be honest, like society is shitty with women. It's like
Yeah.
it's been historically like that, and it's still like that. When even when
It's
like
going back
nowadays, yeah. But I mean, even nowadays, when people try to pat themselves in the back, like, look, all the the path we've walked. Like, well, there's still one a fucking long path ahead of me, boy. So like don't be too happy, and and giving her the tools to like defend herself against masculinity and against like toxic masculinity, and like and also like you said, like let her like teach her that like sure there's people that's going to try to downplay her and like not valorize her as she should be, but like she doesn't have to pay attention to that. Like she has the tools to like stand on her own and carve her own path, you know.
Yeah, and I think like one of like the biggest things that I took from my mom was um she always used to joke marry rich, but I don't think she ever actually meant it, because she also always used to say um make sure that you can take care of yourself. Like whatever happens, you need to be able to protect and take care of your own self. Like first be strong and self-sufficient and whatever as a human, and then that's when you can go and like join forces with other people. And I see that a lot, with women who are abused or in bad relationships or whatever, that they can't leave because they can't afford to. And that's always also been really high on my priority, to show her that she can be a strong, capable woman. Um, she's not, again, not defined by other people, and she can choose her path, and nobody's going to choose it for her. So,
You know, something that came to my mind in this last things we've been talking is about breaking patterns that we inherited from our parents, or the patterns that our parents were in, or people in the family, but also at work. That's something that has been part of our conversation. They break patterns to also like kind of like be clear on what you want to do and what you don't want to do, and so the world has been becoming shittier lately. Um, and so when I was young, I was full of like this anger against injustice. And then you get sucked in this machine of work and everything, and you have to present nice and you have to talk nice towards the client, and then you play along those rules. And now, like that I'm getting older, I'm reconnecting with the anger from my youth. Um, and so I would like to land the plane here with you with we kind of like a strong message, um, which is a question first for you, and is how do you feel that like our industry, like creative industry, the motion design industry, is towards women now?
I don't know if I'm like qualified to answer this question. Um,
Why not? It's just your point of view, and it's as
yeah,
valid is as valid as anybody else.
I don't like it's better than it was. It's not great. I mean, if you just look at it statistically, um, there are more women in creative education than there are men. They typically do better. Um, and there are more junior women than there are men, and yet all the management positions, not all, but a large portion of them are men, and the senior ones are vocally male. So there's a disconnect. Something's happening, and you cannot blame it on children, because, as I have thoroughly said throughout this conversation, is that my success is due to my child. And I am a stronger human, a stronger creative, a better creative. I'm way better at my job than I used to be. And it has nothing to do with children. That's a cop out. And so it's not great until we fix that, and and I appreciate, and I think that's kind of one of the reasons why I came on today, is because when you reached out, you started the conversation by saying, I see that there aren't a lot of women on my podcast, and I'd like to change that. And you went out and you, I understand that it's not as easy. I can give you a list of women that I think you'd have great conversations with.
Please do.
Yeah. And, I think that it takes an amount of effort. It takes an amount of effort to make those changes, but it's like, we're out there, and there's incredibly successful creative women out there that are leading studios, that are running creative projects, and that are, amazing humans. And whether they have children or not is really irrelevant. And it's just about making those purposeful, mindful, small changes in our attitude. And one of the things that I did when I was working, when I work in my studio, is that my shift had been, I used to go to the main people that I work with, but now I start, going through Mothers and MoGraph and seeing what new talents is coming in through there, or I'll go to Panimation and I'll see what interesting folks are there. And sometimes it does take a little bit extra time to find the right people, because they're not as vocal, or they're not as prominent, or they don't get the highlight that they need. But I think the extra effort will benefit us all in the end, because we get to highlight new people. And there are people out there that are doing a fantastic job with that. And a huge shout out to Marin Hayes from Dash, who is incredible at that. She sees people, and she sees well beyond, the main five. I think, people like her are a testament to this industry having this breadth of people that don't get to be highlighted. It's just about being mindful and making an effort. If you see that there's a problem and you want to be part of the solution, be part of the solution. Go do an extra lap before you hire John Smith, Well,
that when we were at the fireside camp chat in the last Camp MoGraph, that's exactly, it was not related to women in particular, but that's why I mentioned to Erin Sorofsky was there, Barton Damer was there, and Ryan Summers. And that's when I brought in that, during COVID, the doors were blown open and people were being hired from all over the world. And that was amazing, because that connected people that were completely unseen and invisible before, which have incredible talent, no matter from which country, continent they were. There was this need of people. And now the doors are closing again, little by little. And that diversity is being lost again. And it's a shame, because I'm not like, again, I'm not even talking about like genders here. It's just like culturally. Like a guy from Tibet will have some cultural inspiration that we don't have. And a guy living in, like, I don't know, in Peru will have like a totally different background and totally different inspos and an approach. And if you mix that with like the history and the culture and the you know, like all the pre-Columbine culture, like, again, you can have like some amazing work done. And same happened with Eastern countries in Europe. Like, but all of that is being kind of like chugged in just because of like, yeah, maybe because they're cheaper, but not because of their real value, you know. Um, and the question I ask, like the reason I ask you this question is not, it's not innocent. It's not like, oh, let's close it with just a random question. Like, I think it's important to share what you just shared and put that out, um, because I really want this podcast to bring something to the table and help people, whatever they come from. And yeah, and like I said, when I approached you, I really want to have like more female representation in the podcast, because when I started looking at it, yeah, it was a bunch of dudes. They're all great, and they, you know, like they're all nice people. But it's just that I was really like, it really struck me like, yeah, something is missing here, you know. And that was and like, again, most of them are white also. So that's like another part of like the thing I'm gonna try to do next is also like get like more people from all over the place with different cultural backgrounds and like talk, yeah, with maybe a guy that is in, I don't know, in Africa, you know, what's his life in this industry, like what his like problematics and how he's approaching it. And I think that will also like bring consciousness, because we won't win any of these fights if people don't have consciousness that this is happening.
Yeah, it's, just talking about, I mean, one of the reasons, not one of the reasons, but like one of the things that Casey and I, when we started Mother's Demograph, we're just like, if we don't talk about this, nobody's going to. And nothing's going to change if people can't hear the problem. You can assume what the problem is, but if you can't hear it and you don't know, if you're not willing to listen, then things will never change. And I think one of the things that I didn't realize would happen is hearing from so many other women uh, the same thing, and having, I mean, there's almost 300 women in our Slack channel now. Not all of them are mothers. Like the bulk of them, I would say 90% are. Um, and they all have this same or similar experiences. And the number one thing that they're saying is like, I thought I was alone, and now it's just comforting to know that I'm not, and like what I'm going through is normal, and and okay, and there's seasons to a creative career, and currently this is the season that I'm in, um and yeah, just the more you talk about a problem, the more people can start looking for solutions. And I don't think Mother's Demograph is a solution, but it's a start. It it's it's given me a place um to be myself, and not feel penalized for talking about my kid, or for questioning whether I should take a project or go on a school trip. It's um yeah, it's so, I mean, I guess to answer your question, no, the industry is not a great space for women. and there is a lot of change that needs to be happening, and there's not enough people who are looking at their screenshot and as a man not calling that out, you know, and just going with the flow and being like, oh no, this is fine, like this is fine, these are the industry leaders, and it's like, no, they're not, they are absolutely not. There are more people out there. We might be quieter, we might be more soft spoken, we might not let be, you know, less aggressive in the workspace or whatever it is that doesn't make space for us at the table. But we're out there, and again, just being mindful about moving forward and looking for them. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good way to close it and to land.
I
the
was
plane.
like trying to be like super calm and collective, and I'm like, damn it, I'm angry again.
No. I think I know, but I think it's a good way to close it. I think that's a good way to resume the situation.
Yeah.
And you know, like the ball is on our side.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to fight something else that's called capitalism too. But I mean,
yeah, there's other issues around the world that we have to deal with, and this is not the only problem. But
that's
like,
that's for another podcast. I cannot tackle all the problems in this one. But Jennie, like, thanks a lot to have joined the podcast. Thanks a lot to have been so open and vocal about things you feel and you think, and I hope to see you soon.
Yes, I hope to see you soon. Cross the borders.
Exactly. Take care.
Thanks so much.